This originated as just a weakness concocted for a fictional character, but a real-life symbiote like this would scientifically have a weakness to intense perceptual inputs. A boosted nervous system, like the one that Venom gives to Brock, would in fact result in sound being amplified, and any weaknesses that symbiotes naturally had to sonic activity would likely be boosted as well. Carnage uses Screech? It is super effective. This also opens up Venom to all kinds of nervous system-based weaknesses. Rapid changes in temperature, bright flashing lights, overwhelmingly bad smells. These are all things that are unpleasant to normal humans and could ultimately cripple the heightened awareness of Venom. Let me be clear, while these things might not be all that effective in the comics, out in the real world battle against the symbiote connected to your nerves, it's suddenly gonna matter a lot. Carnage, on the other hand, is gonna get away with a lot more here. Because he's connected to the blood, his weaknesses are much fewer and far between. Blood isn't gonna be weak to things like sound or flashing lights because blood has nothing to do with human perception. It's no weaker to sound than any other molecule in the body. And, well, that's just me running an analysis on what the real world science would look like. This actually holds true in the comics, surprisingly enough. All the symbiotes start as weak to sonics to some extent. Not that sort of sonic. Carnage eventually loses that vulnerability. Now, admittedly, it has less to do with his blood connection and more to do with him being granted extra abilities through the powers of ancient magic. Whatever it is, I'm just here to say that the science actually supports his powers as seen in the comics. So if a blood connection protects Carnage from most of the things that would harm Venom, then what is he gonna be vulnerable to? Maybe heat? That's traditionally one of the other classic symbiote weaknesses in the comics. And yeah, you can definitely heat the blood up enough for it to boil and degrade, but neurons are gonna be just as susceptible to those high temperatures, so Venom would be equally at risk. And again, in the comics, we see in the web of Venom that dark Carnage is no longer susceptible to fire. How about electricity? This is still Carnage's main weakness in the comics, and yeah, electricity would absolutely hurt red blood cells. But again, it would also affect Venom, considering that the neurons of Eddie's body literally run on electrical pulses. One of the only things that Carnage seems weak to that Venom wouldn't be is probably the least exciting thing possible: blood-based illnesses. Blood can be weak to itself, as is the case with proliferative blood disorders like leukemia or autoimmune neutropenia, where blood cells attack other blood cells. But for as much as blasting Carnage with radiation until he has cancer sounds like the sort of solution we'd come up with for a film theory on how to kill Carnage, I'm gonna venture a wild